Today's Shiur is given Le'ilui Nishmasa of a very distinguished woman, Ha'isha Achashuva Moras Esther Basleya Kayakov from Queens, New York, who was nifter on Tammuz earlier this week and was brought to Kvura in Har Menuchos in Yerushalayim. Mrs. Kayakov was a splendid lady with so many profound qualifications, brought up at Doiros, Yesharim, and Verochem, and it was Reish Verishayna, L'Kol Dover Shebekadusha. Tehei Nishmasa Srura B'Tzroir HaChaim. This week we're going to have a special feature Shiur discussing a little bit the forthcoming Shivah so Tammuz is going to be taking place this coming week. There are days that Klal Yisrael are misane because of the tzores that happened during those days. If you look in the Rambam, the tachlis of the tainis is to be me'orer de levavos and to go bedarkei atshuva, shehi as a zikorin lemaseinu arayim ulemaise avoseinu, עד שגורמו להם אויסו מצוריס, שבזיכרון דבורים אלו נושב להיטיב, שנאמר ויסוודו אסבוינום ואסבוינבויס. The reason why we perpetuate all these tanesim is because we have to remember the reason why this tzoros took place, and therefore every single person, as Loshen HaRambam and Rabbeinu Yoine, Tzorich Odom lefashbesh b'maiso v'lo shuv b'tshuva k'mo shekosov be'anshei Ninveh vayar Hashem es ma'aseyem ve'omu rabbeinu zichronom livrocho lo ne'ema vayar esakom ve'tanisom elo es ma'aseyem ve'ein atoinis elo achono l'tshuva. In other words, the reason why we fast is not the fasting the ikar, is doing tshuva. And in order to do tshuva properly, we must be mesaken our drochim and losim al libeinu, the reason why the tzores happen. What are the four tanesim that we count? The pasuk says in Zechariah, tzoim harevi, v'tzoim hachamishi, v'tzoim hashevi, v'tzoim ha'asiri. What are the Tzoim HaRevi? As we know in the Luach, we start counting all the Chodoshim from Chodesh Nisan. The Chodshei Hashanah are started to be counted according to Torah from Chodesh Nisan. So Chodesh HaRevi is Shivah so Tammuz, is Chodesh Tammuz. Tammuz is the fourth month L'minyan HaChodoshim. Tzoim HaChamishi is the Tzoim of Tishah B'Av, which is the fifth month. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz of. Tzoim Hashvi is Tzoim Gedalia. Tzoim Gedalia ben Achikom, as we know, it really has nothing to do, it's not part of the Churban, but the Gemara Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis says, L'lamdecho, sheshkulas misas tzadikim ki sreifas beis Elokeinu. We know the whole story that Ishmael ben Nesaniah killed Gedalia ben Achikom, who was Memune on the Shevis HaPleita in Yerushalayim. It didn't last too long. His Malchus from Gedalia ben Achikom, his Shilton, he killed him, and they perpetuated the tiniest, the Shaila. When he killed him, Beis Tishah, Gimel Tishah was a Nitre. How was it when there was 1 day Rosh Hashanah, 2 days Rosh Hashanah, we're not getting involved? Al Kaponim, that's called Tzoim Hashvi. And Tzoim HaAsiri is Asar B'Teves, Sheboi Somach Melech Bovel Aloyir. It's the 10th month Tevet. We don't count Tainis Esther because that's not part of the Tanesim. It was a separate Tainis, was made by Esther in the late Kufa, which had to do with the Nes of Purim. But the Tanesim, which are mentioned in the Novi Zechariah, again, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi were the last three Nevi'im Achronim. Poscha Nevuah by Malachi is the end of the Parsha, the Tkufas HaNevuah. They came up from Bavel with the Shevis HaPleita, with Ezra Sefer and Nehemiah ben Chachliah, Zerubbabel ben Shalsiel, they came up and they rebuilt the second Beis Hamikdash, and they were there for the Bayis Sheni Poscha Nevuah, and he says in Nevuah, when he starts building Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, he starts seeing, Oid, Koyom Hashem, Tzom HaRevi, V'tzom HaChamishi, V'tzom HaShvi, V'tzom HaAsir, Yelochem. He would convert from being a Yom Ta'anesim, Yom Evel, to Yom of Sosai V'Simcha. And indeed, in Bayis Sheni, before the Churban Bayis Sheni, all those 4 days which were Ta'anesim, they celebrated them L'Sosai and L'Simcha. It's a Shiur b'fnei atzma. Maybe around Tishah B'Av we'll speak about this Ta'anesim which converted and became Sosai V'Simcha. The Inyan for Shivah B'Tammuz is discussed in a few places in Shas, but the Mekoyer Hadvorim is the Mishnah in Tainis in Dav Chavov Amud Aleph on the bottom. The Mishnah says as follows: Chamisha Dvorim Heiru Es Avoseinu B'Shivah B'Tammuz v'Chamisha B'Tisha B'Av. The Mishnah counts the 5 occurrences which took place to our forefather Avoseinu in Shivah B'Tammuz, and there's 5 occurrences that took place on Tisha B'Av. B'Shivah B'Tammuz, I'm first going to read, I'm name them all, and then we're going to go each one of these itemized tzoros she'eru l'Avoseinu. Nishtabru haluchos ubutal hatomid vehuvkeo ha'ir v'soraf afotumus esatere ve'emid tzelem b'heichel. So we have 5 different occurrences that took place, we'll soon see, in 5 different kufas, that tzoros she'eru l'Avoseinu in Shivah B'Tammuz. B'Tisha B'Av. What happened on Tisha B'Av? Also, Chamisha Dvorim she'eru l'Avoseinu on Tisha B'Av. Steht in the Mishnah, Nigzar ha'Avoseinu shelo yikonsu la'oretz. V'chorav habayis borishoina uvashniya. V'nilkedo beisor. V'nechresha ha'ir. 5 things that took place on Tisha B'Av. We'll speak about it as we get to Tisha B'Av, but not right now. The Gemara says, how do you know Nishtabru Aluchos? Nishtabru Aluchos, says the Gemara, the Tanya, B'shisha b'chodesh nitnu aseres adibros leYisrael, Rabbi Yosef b'Shivah boy, Mando Omar b'shisha nitnu b'shvi ola, Moshe Mando Omar shvi b'shvi nitnu b'shvi ola. This is certainly that Moshe Rabbeinu went back up to Har Sinai after Aseres Hadibros on the 7th day of Sivan. The question if the Dibros were given to him on 6th and he went up on 7th, or both took place in the very same day. The Nesina of Aseres Hadibros was also given in Zion Sivan. Al Kaponim Moshe certainly went up in Zion Sivan. The Ksiv Vayikro El Moshe Bayem Hashvi V'Ksiv Vayi Moshe B'Seicho Ona Vayal El Ohor Vayi Moshe Bohor. Chovdale de Sivan, the 24 days of Sivan, Veshisor the Tammuz, and 16 days of Tammuz. I want to get to the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was in Har Sinai, was 24 plus 16. Those were the days. Molule Arboim, Beshiva Oso B'Tammuz, Yordo, Noches. Oso V'Tavrinu Leluches. Ksiv vayikash rekov v'ramachna v'yares ha'egel v'yashlach miyod v'saluchis v'yishaber oisom tachas ha'or. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the first thing counted in the Mishnah that took place is Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchas on Shivah B'Tammuz. Okay, we're not going to do now the next thing, but let's first go and focus on those 3 first items mentioned in the Mishnah. Moshe Rabbeinu, after Maimed Har Sinai and Kabbalah Satera, goes up to Har Sinai and he stays there, Aboim Yoy v'Aboim Loilo. And he learns Torah Mipi HaGvura. When he comes down with the Luchos, in the Luchos were Chakukim, the Aseres Hadibros. Moshe saw the Klal Yisrael made the eagles of. The Gemara has a whole cheshbon. They made a cheshbon, Moshe Shlove, they thought he's coming b'sheish. They made some kind of a mistake. Ba'al Kaponim, they were Ovid Avedizor, they took and they constructed an egel from Zov. And part of Klal Yisrael, I can't say Gans Klal Yisrael, Shevet Levi was not Choyte Be'egel, the Noshim were not Choyte, but the vast majority of Zuchorim from the Shvatim were Choyte in the Egel. Toshash Koichi Shel Moshe, the Gemara tells us the whole story in Shabbos and in Menachos, and the Luchas were broken. He broke the Luchas. Not only the Luchas were broken on Shivah Tammuz, but the Chet HaEgel. Lamaisa, the day of Shivah Tammuz is the day of Klal Yisrael made the Chet HaEgel, and as a result, Moshe Rabbeinu breaks up the Luchas. Let's move on a second to the second occurrence that happened. It says, Vebutal HaTomid. The Tomid is the very basic, fundamental, most important korban, which is being korev every single day al gabe hamizbeach, shnei kvosim pnim echad baboyke v'echad ben arbaim, and throughout the kufer with the Remoim were tsar and Yerushalayim, in the first motzar of the Remoim Sobiv Yerushalayim, which took place a number of years, they were able, even though they were under siege, to receive every single day. They were mishal shilim dinorim of Zohov to the people on the bottom of the Chayma, and they used to bring them up the Shnei Kvosim in order not to be mevatel the Havedas HaKorbanos in Beis HaMikdash. Shiva, the last time the Kvosim were brought up in order to serve him and to be makriv in Beis HaMikdash was Tezayin Tammuz. In Shiva Tammuz was the first day that they were misbattle the Havedas HaKorbanos from Korban Tomid. By the way, other Korbanos were mukrav still a little later till the actual Churban. During the 3 weeks Bein HaMetzorim of the Shnas HaChurban, still they were makriv as Eves Shteit Muchach in the Sugis Agmoy and Erechin. They were makriv till the actual Churban, other Korbanos. But the Korban HaTomid, and the mitzvah is, as the Ramban counts, you kol HaKorbanos krevim bein shnei atmidim. This kvius of Korban HaTomid was nisbatel on Shivah Tammuz. The third occurrence is that it says Afutoimus burned the Torah. Who is Afutoimus? Is a machlekes, the Babylon, the Yerushalmi, but apparently he was one of the Sorim, the Romans' minister, and he came in and he burnt up the Beis Hamikdash, the Sefer Torah. Ve'emid pesel beBeis Hamikdash. The shaila is, who is this Emid pesel Beis Hamikdash? The Lashon HaMishnah is ve'emid. So some Rishonim learn that Apatoimus, who burned the Torah, he went to the Heichel and he brought a tzelem of a desert to put into Heichel. In Yerushalmi, in Tainis, in the 4th parak, state that this is not referring to the Churban, it's referring to the Hamodas HaPesel in Bayis Rishon by Menashe ben Chizkiah, who was Ovid Avedazor. Bal Kaponim, these are the 5 things that happened. But at the end of the day, the reason why they were Kivea the Tainis, for Shviras Haluchos, they weren't Kivea Tainis. The time where the Tainis was constituted by the Chachamim was Huv Ke'or Ha'ir. The Yerushalayim, Klal Yisrael, we know, were Moired in the Remoim, and 3 years the Remoim are trying to put a siege on Yerushalayim and to get it back from the Yidden. And after the war in Matzliach, at the end of the day, because the stories, and we're not going to be ma'arich right now, the stories of Sinas Chim and the Milchemes Achim that took place, the defenders, the Jewish defenders who protected Yerushalayim got shvacher. There was a machlekes, and the machlekes brought about a chulsha, and the Reimoim was nisgabru. How were the misgaber? It says that on Shivah Tammuz, they were matzliach to penetrate, to break the chayma, the wall around Yerushalayim, and to break in Pnima. Kol Zman of the 3 years, the Remoim were outside, and Yidden were fighting with chitzim and blistros. This old Yemei HaKoires who describe very, very in detail the whole Milcham of the 3 years, but Al Kaponim at the end, because of Sinas Chin and because of the machlekes between the Achim, the whole story there, and it happened that these Remoim were matzliach to penetrate and to break into the city, the Churban. 3 weeks there were bitter fights in the streets of Yerushalayim, 21 Yom, until on Tishah B'Av they captured the Arabais and they burned the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, and thereafter Klal Yisrael goes to a major Golus, the second Golus of Churban Bayisheni. When did this thing take place, really? When did this Hufko here? So I'd like to learn with you. This is something which is very unique and special. There's not too many times that we have time to focus on it. But if we were to look at Sefer Yirmiyah, in Perek Lametes, and I'm quoting the first two psukim, Sefer Yirmiyah, Shteit Azeh, Bashono Hachi'is. Now, Sefer Yirmiyah is describing Churban Bayis Rishon, not Churban Bayis Sheni. There's a Churban Bayis Rishon, which stood on its place 410 years, and during the Tkuf of Yirmiyahu, Nebuchadnezzar comes and he destroys the first Beis Hamikdash. They go to Golus Bubble for 70 years. They come back, they rebuild the second temple. Ezra and Nehemiah, they stay there till the Tkuf of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai 420 years later. So we have 410 years, 70 years, and 420 years together for the Tkuf of Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni and Golus Bubble in between. State in the Pasuk in Yirmiyah, which is talking about Bayis Rishon, not talking about Bayis Sheni. State Azeh, Bashona Achis leTzidkiyahu Melech Yehuda, B'chodesh HaAsiri, okay, Bo Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bovel V'chol Chelil Yerushalayim V'yatzuru Oleh. He's talking about B'chodesh HaAsiri. Chodesh HaAsiri is Tevis. Asar b'Tevis, in the 10th year of, in the 9th year of Tzidkiyahu Melech Yehuda, that's when he started Somach Melech Bavel al year he started. This is the term of Asar b'Tevis. That really was the beginning of the Milchama of the Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, who came on top of Yerushalayim. This was in the Shona Achis in Chodesh Tevis. The next pasuk, Be'ashtei Asar Shono leTzidkiyahu b'chodesh harevi beTisha l'chodesh hufker year. Thereafter, in 2-3 years later, it says b'feish b'chodesh harevi it's chodesh Tammuz beTisha l'chodesh tes Tammuz nivker hufker ha'ir. Loshen pasuk, right? So the Gemara says, Bayis Rishon, Yerushalayim really was Ufkir, not in Yerushalayim was not Ufkir in Yudzayim B'Tammuz, but in Tes Tammuz. As there's a pasuk before, she can't dingzach, he can't fight with a pasuk before. The reason why we fast in Shivah B'Tammuz, why isn't the Tainis on Tes Tammuz? Why not? State in the Gemara in Tainis, in Daf Chof Ches Amud Beis, because in Bayis Sheni, they penetrated Yerushalayim, the Remoim, that's not Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni is the Remoim. The Remoim come in Bayis Sheni, they broke the walls of Yerushalayim on Shivah B'Tammuz. And therefore, the Tzoim was constituted based on the Bekiyah of the Shtot Yerushalayim in Bayis Sheni, not in Bayis Rishon. So the truth of the matter is, what a pasuk in Sefer Zechariah says, Tzoim HaRevi v'Tzoim HaChamishi, he's talking about right now the beginning. Zechariah wasn't alive at the end of Bayis Sheni. Zechariah was alive at the end of Bayis Rishon and the beginning of Bayis Sheni. When he says Tzoim HaRevi v'Tzoim HaChamishi v'Tzoim HaShvi'i v'Tzoim HaAsiri, he's talking about Tzoim HaRevi is Tzoim of Tammuz, but not Shivah B'Tammuz that comes out. He's referring to the 9th of Tammuz, because in Bayis Rishon, the Uvker Psukim Mefaroshim in Tes Tammuz, and not in Shivah B'Tammuz. Toises in Rosh Hashanah in Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis says, V'hach Braise Masnisim B'Yerushalmi V'golsina Bo Yud Zayin Tammuz. Toises says that even though it says by us that it happened on Tes Tammuz, the Yerushalmi is Goyres Yud Zayin Tammuz even in Bayis Rishon. Ve'afal gav diksiv bikro, Toises fragt Takasha, you can't fight city hall, steht doch in Pasuk Mefurish, B'tshi l'chodesh, kilkul cheshbonos hoyushom. There was some kind of misunderstanding, some kind of a mistake, and they didn't keep the right cheshbon. Upol legashas didon, v'roitz loimar demitoich tirdosam tov becheshboinom, v'leirotz ha'posuk l'shanis mikemoisha yusvurim. In other words, they made a toast. They were fatumult, they were tzemisht, and because of their mistake, they counted Tishah b'Tammuz. And since they made a mistake, when the pasuk says b'Tishah chodesh uv'ka'ir, the pasuk is perpetuating the mistake that they made, and they really held that it happened on Tes Tammuz. But the emes yinadarkei, that according to the Yerushalmi, Sai uvke oir by Srisha Sai by Sheni, it all happened on Shivah Tammuz. You know, the problem with that is that the Mishnah says Chamisha Dvorim Iru beLaviseinu b'Shivah Tammuz, Chamisha Dvorim beTisha B'Av. What are the Chamisha Dvorim in Tisha B'Av? Chamisha Dvorim in Tisha B'Av is Horav Bais Rishon v'Bais Shein. In other words, the Churban of Bais Rishon and Bais Shein the same day happens to be two different soras that because of them we are fasting and we're making the whole inyan, the whole tightness of Tisha B'Av. So Bishlam, if you're going to learn that the truth of the matter is that the Bais was Chorav on Tes, Adei Yerushalayim was penetrating on Tes. On Tes Tammuz, like it's the Poshet Pshat in the Pasuk. So I understand why it says in the Chamisha Dvorim we only count Huvke or year once. But if you're going to say that according to the Yerushalmi, really in essence took place the Churban Abayis in Shivah Tammuz, and they made a mistake, they made a kilkul cheshbonos, and the pasuk did not want to deviate from their mistake and perpetuated the mistake. So l'chura, the same way the Mishnah says that in the Chamisha Tzoros that happened Laviseinu, it should have counted also the Shivah Tammuz Sheboi Huvke Oir Barishonu Bashniya. Exactly the same thing. Chorav Abayis Barishonu. We see that the tzara that happens with Huvke Oir is counted in one of the tzoros of Shivah Tammuz, and you see that the tzara of Churban Abayis is counted as one of the tzoros of Churban Abayis. But because Tisha B'Av, there's no question that Sai by Srish and Sai by Sheni, the occurrence took place on Tisha B'Av, and therefore we counted as two different Me'oiroyes She'iru Laviseinu on Tisha B'Av. So too, in Shivah Tammuz, in as much that it really happened according to the Yerushalmi on Shivah Tammuz, it should have said, Lemaise, it should have said that in the Shisha Dvorim Nasu Laviseinu b'Shivah Tammuz. The Nihuvka here Barishenu Bashniya. The emes yoyradarkoi, that there is a pelodik marsha. I'm reading the marsha. The marsha says in Tainis Daf Chufchesa with Beis, and I would like to read the Lashon of marsha. What does it mean? B'Yerushalmi Tiritz, I'm reading the marsha. Be'inyan achet the kilkul cheshbonos hoyashom v'nira leforish. לפי שאום ישראל אומיינים לחמו וישראל ללבונה. ועל ידי אויבים אויבדי עבודת סלילים שגוזרו על חשבון הלבונה וקידוש החודש. כמוי שכוסו במסכת ראש השונה, נעשה זה הקלקול. ובוודאי בי"ז בתמוז בחודש הלבונה, נבכה העיר גם בראשונה, כמפורש בקרוא בירמיהו, מקל שקד אני רואה, שהם חופלף יומים שבין שבעה לתמוז לתשעה באב. So the Mashal Morris says Makel the Shoked, this nut, the Shaked, the Makel Shaked Ani Roeh, this almond is growth. The Gemara says, the Medrash says, Chofal of Yom. From the time of Chanota till the Gemara Pri takes 21 days. So too, Ani Shaked, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that I am and the Churban Makel Shaked Ani Roeh. He tells Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu is in Bais Rishon, and it says the same way to the 21 days from the Zman of the beginning, the inception of the Chanota of the Shoked, of the Makel Shoked Ani Roeh, which is Shivah Tammuz. From Shivah Tammuz, we know we have 3 weeks, 21 days. That is 21. So the Marsha is behechrech. You have to say if on Tisha B'Av was Chorva a year, Chorva Ba'is, B'Rishona B'Shniya, that also Ufka a year in Rishona happened in Shivah Sabatam. So but the story is like this. We know the Klal Yisrael is Meinin Levana, and the Umas Oilam is Meinim Lachamo. The Shnoi Sachamo, a solar year and a lunar year, the difference, the gap is that the solar year 365 years, 355 days a year, and the Shnas Halavana is 354. These 11 days. That's what we know that the Chodoshim is totally in Oynes Hashana. Chag HaOviv, that's what we make a Yibur basically every 3 years, not exactly every 3 years, but on the average, on or about every 3 years, because we're missing 33 days, and we have to have Pesach has to happen B'Chodesh HaOviv during the springtime. Therefore, we make a Yibur Hashan. But Klal Yisrael is Meina LaLevana, and the Umas Oilam is Meina Lachamo. And they forced Klal Yisrael, Zog the Ma'asho, they forced Klal Yisrael, they made a gzeira not to be oived, not to make the Jewish calendar according to the Levana, but according to the Cham. Zog the Marsho. אבל לפי קלקול חשבון של האויבים, שמיינים לחם אלוהי רק בטס תמוז. דשנס החמו מויסיב על שנס הלבון י"א יומים, נמצא שבגימל תקופס מתשרי התמוז מויסיב חס יומים, שבין תשרי תמוז לחמו ובין י"ז הלבון. זה מויד כבוד. He says that the reason why the pasuk says that Betisha by Rishon was Betisha l'chodesh. Behemes Yeredarko is of the Marsho. It happened on Shivas B'Tammuz. It didn't happen on Tishah B'Tammuz. It happened on Shivas B'Tammuz. And the raya that he has is from the Medrash that says that 21 days Makel Shaked, and that's the nevuah of Yirmiyah, which took place in Bais Rishon. Really, but since the Moed Shnei Sachamo and the Oiv the Kechovim forced Klal Yisrael to change the calendar from lunar year to solar year, so these 11 days, so if you count Tishri Cheshvan, Kislev, Tev Shvat, Odo, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, 3 Chalokim of the year, which is about approximately 8 out of 11. 8 out of 11 years of the gap passed by. So Mimeila comes out that Tishah l'chodesh Tammuz, which is mentioned in the pasuk in Yirmiyah, not kilkul cheshbonus. So you come, they made a mistake. Pasuk like it was a toast, and they made a mistake, and the pasuk is perpetuating the toast. By the way, Rabbi Loza Moshe Horowitz said that he writes that Lule Yotzo Advo Mipir Rabbi Seinu Ba'alei Toisvis Ela Ini Shachina V'Amrina Lo Have Ach Lo L'Mishmei. We don't have to listen to it. He's passionate, angry at Toisus. He says, Toisus, I don't know what to do. Toisus said they perpetuated, killed the whole pasuk. He's perpetuating the mistakes of Klal Yisrael. Marsha says no. The reason why the pasuk says that it took place in B'Tish B'Chodesh Uvka or year is because the pasuk is talking about what the Umas Oilam, the pasuk. And by the way, this is the very only times that we have a Goyish date mentioned in Tanakh. It's not so pashut. One spoke about it. Somebody came to Chaim Kanievsky at a machlekes with Rav Shach. If there is such a thing as an English birthday, which is very fascinating, very interesting, and he brought it right. He says, Ka'is Chayil of Asar Ben, he made him a scrape in the Kaisel, and he says, when the Chama will come next year to here, how can the Chama come here? The Chama is Ka'is Chayil. He's telling him in a year from now, and we know it takes a full year for the cycle of the Chama, Kader Or. So apparently, there is such a thing as counting an English birthday. It's a fascinating subject and topic, how we misyaches to English birthdays. But apparently, the Marsha says that the pasuk that says B'Tish L'Chodesh, it's be'emes in our calendar, in the Jewish calendar, was Yudzayin B'Tammuz. And that's why it really took only 21 days in Churban Bais Rishon from the B'Kiyas year till the Churban. The only reason why it's mentioned as Tes Tammuz is because it was according to the when I was young, I used to be zeicha to be mistafif a little bit and to listen to one of the Rosh Yeshivas in Yeshivas Kolter in Yerushalayim. His name was Rabbi Yeina Merzbach. He was a very great scholar, big Talmid Chacham, but he knew very much about the Luach. He was a Yekishe, a Deutsche Godel, and he was the author of the Encyclopedia Talmudis, and he put out a sefer, and I just took a look at the sefer in it's called Alei Yoina. So he has a seaman, and he writes, and I want to quote what he says. It's a tumult. He says he doesn't understand. Pasuk should perpetuate a wrong date for something that really didn't take place because there was a tumult. They couldn't hold the calendar because it was time of a war, so it's a wrong calendar. So the Pasuk is going to say the wrong date to perpetuate what they made a mistake. He says, "V'yesh hes beracha b'marsho." He quotes a marsho. "Shelchesh ben chod shechama matchil m'tkufas Tammuz shebeu b'soil u'machriv v'abayis u'yimoin b'emes ufkei ayi b'tisho b'Tammuz shelchamo. Aval min chod shel levana shelono oyu b'tzayim b'Tammuz v'akil kul hoya ben shnei cheshbonos elu. V'yesh lehoisif." Listen to this is a person who really knew the calendar and Tanakh very, very well. "Shekefi shemuchach mikol chazyones Yecheskel." All the nevuos of Yecheskel. Ba'avinasenu arabim rabim hoyu oivde hashemesh be'oisa zman b'Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, a large part of Klal Yisrael, where oivde was oivde ba'avinasenu arabim oivde hashemesh shebevadai monu lefi chodshei v'tkufoso v'nichtov gam b'mikro zman kibush Yerushalayim lefi cheshbon hagoyim v'azoinim achareim el kvias hatainis hoiso lefi ha'emes shelonu lefi ha'tarich lechodshei halevon. So he says, he says a lot of people, you see from Chazyonis Yecheskel, he has a whole arichas about it. There were later, oivdim, not all of them, people were oivdim of the Zohar, and some of them were going according to the Chodshei Achama, not according to Chodshei Halevana. So the reason why the Pasuk is saying what he's saying, the Marsha says as Asar for it, that the reason why, because it happened because the Goyim forced them at the time to go to change the calendar according to Chodshei Achama. So Mimele Tishah b'chodesh doesn't mean Tishah. Really, in our Jewish calendar, if you take a calendar for 6,000 years, and Repan Shivah B'Tammuz, it took 21 days between B'kiah Sayir and between the Churban Abayis. But it just doesn't perpetuate. Tishah seems to be saying a very strange chidush. And everybody's tumult to the Tishah that there was a tumult and they made it kill Kol Cheshbonos. And therefore, the Navi is saying, Yirmiyahu is saying, according to what their mistake, which is very hard to digest by the Psadas, the Shver Taisis. But the Marshal would like to suggest that it really was Tes Tammuz, but Lefchodshei Achamo, because 8 out of 11 is basically 3/4 of the year that pass by, and therefore, if you add on top of Tes another Ches, you're going to get the Shivah Tammuz. And he's adding on that when the Chachomim came and later on and made a constitution of a tainis to perpetuate the Churban and to perpetuate the source, they took unsere calendar, our calendar. But the Navi, he's speaking about the calendar that they counted by Israelis for even the only problem I have with that is because somebody who knows Navi, you look at the same parak that it says B'tisha b'chodesh hu year, look in Yirmiyahu in Perek Nun Beis. It's twice in Yirmiyahu, Saim Perek Lametes and Saim Perek Nun Beis. It says both times, it says B'tisha l'chodesh hu year. But if we look at the later psukim, it says U'b'chodesh, I'm quoting, look at, somebody wants to look in Perek Nun Beis in Yirmiyahu and Pasuk Yud Beis, and I'm quoting the Pasuk. U'b'chodesh ha'chamishi, we're talking about chodesh of, Be'asoir l'chodesh, bo nevuzaradan rav tabochim, vayisov es beis Hashem ves beis HaMelech. He burnt. We know the Gemara says that really the bais was nisraf in Assyria, and the reason why we started the Eis Erev in Tishah B'Av, Motzei Tishah B'Av, started burning. But the Pasuk says, Mikra mole diber hakosov, the Pasuk says, that Be'asoir l'chodesh, bo nevuzaradan rav tabochim, vayisov es beis HaMelech. So, Bishlam, according to Taisis, the Taisis says that because there was a tumult at that time, Klal Yisrael is in Milchama, they broke their calendar, broke their thing, and there was a tumult, they made a mistake. They lost the calendar, and they messed up, and they saw there was 9th. So I understand that afterwards, when it came a couple days came by, after they already broke, they came into the new Chodesh, and they see the new Levana, and it comes to Chodesh of, they realized they made a mistake, and it really was Shivah B'Tammuz because they saw, according to Levana, the Chidush HaLevana, the Chodesh of, that's why the Pasuk is saying, Klape, a few psukim later, Klape the Churban Abayis, it took a place in Asir Be'ov. But according to the Shtikol Torah, the Marsha, that the reason why it says B'tisha is not because of a mistake, and there was a tumult, and there were miscalculated. But because it was bedafka, because the goyim forced him, the goyim ba'isar eis that u'machar Yerushalayim, that are penetrating in Bais Rishon, the Nebuchadnezzar, the Tzva, the Vuzaradan, they're coming in and they're forcing them to go according to Shnei Sacham, not according to Shnei Salavano. So why does it say Man ishtano sreifas habayis, that the pasuk quotes it according to the 10th of Av, which is le'oira levano? Because otherwise, if we go according to the le'oira chama, it should have been l'shchodesh Av, it should have been that 21 days after Tishah. It should have been, it should say be'echad l'chodesh ha'asir, and not ba'asir l'chodesh ha'asir, ba'asir l'chodesh, and ba'asir l'chodesh ha'chamishi, which is chodesh Av. He should have said that and not that, and that's a big tzorich here in the Maharsha, that the very next pasuk, a couple psukim later, from pasuk Vav to pasuk Yud Beis, it counts it already according to Shnei Salvan and not according to Shnei Sacham. We don't have too much time left, but the Minchas Chinuch, I'd just like to end off with the Minchas Chinuch. Minchas Chinuch in Shinalef has a big arichas. The Minchas Chinuch says a shtickle Torah, which is fascinating, and he says that be'emes midivrei Kabbalah, the tiniest, there wasn't any Yom Yuchad. The tiniest was Tzoyim HaRevi, V'Tzoyim HaChamishi, V'Tzoyim HaShvi, V'Tzoyim HaAsiri. The tiniest on that month, and I'm reading. The Arba Tzoyim HaSalolim Midivrei Kabbalah Einik Bolem Yom Yuchad Asar B'Tevis Tishah Bo V'Kayotze B'Zeh. HaKadivrei Kabbalah Al Eila HaChadoshim. The B'Tevis, V'Tammuz, V'Ov, V'Tishrei Mechuyovim Lisanes B'Em Yom Echad. There is a din on the Chodesh Mechuyev. אבל לא נסייחד יום ייחוד, רק איזה יום שלא יצא יוכל ליסנס רק באלה החדוש. וראיה לדובר, בספר זכריה אין מבוא כלל, יום כלל, רק צום רבי, צום חמישי וצום השביעי וצום העשירי, דהיינו החדושים. והאובי לכו ראיס ברורס, I'll bring you ראיס ברורס, that I'm right, that באמס יוירד דרכוי, that the perpetuation, the Divrei Kabbalah was on the Chodesh, and the Divrei Kabbalah was not on the particular day. Okay, I'm going to skip, we don't have time, about one raya brings down from the Asar tables. Let's go to the second raya. V'gam shom mevur, I'm quoted in Minchas Chinuch, anybody wants to see mitzvah shin aleph. The betisha betamuz huvkeo year. Ve'eich misanim b'shivah asar, u'metar, the Gemara has a kasha. The Gemara has a kasha. State betisha, and why we sabu, u'metar tzrove, by sheni necha b'shivah asar boy. The more Zalei Kasha Kam Berisha Kam B'Shein. The more Pashtus means to say Bais Rishon really was Uvke a year Betes Tammuz, and Bais Sheni was in Shivah Asar Tammuz. Umavusha Betesis Ubais Sheni Chomur Lakem Isani B'Yud Zayin. So since Bais Sheni is more Chomur to us, so therefore we didn't perpetuate both 9th and Tammuz and Yud Zayin. We made it only Yud Zayin. V'tmiya Gdoilo Zog L'Michas Chinuch. Erecholim La'akor Divrei Kabbalah Shu Ketayra Aval Likboa Gam Yud Zayin Boy. ואם כושר הציבור יכולים לעקור דובר בתוירה בקום ועשר לאכול ולישה שתיינה מדברי קבול בשעת השמד כמבואר ברמב"ן בתוירה סורדום. ועוד רבי יוחנן אומר אלוהיסה שם כבוסי בעשיר ורבון הנסחלת לפרוס העדיפו איך היו שם? איך אלוהי שם קבע בעשיר וכדידי הדובר טוב מדברי קבול אלא ודאי הוא הדובר אשר דיברתי די הקבול לא יסיים מיוחד רק החודשים באיזה יום בחודש שלא יצא מסנים. וכן בימי סוסה ושמחה, באיזה יום שלא יצאים, או יצאים סוסה ושמחה. אם כן, בבית שני או מוקם כל נויה כמו שהיו רויצים. ואחרי שנחרב הבית בשנייה ורויצים נקבע יום לכל ישראל בשווה, קעיד את קייס, it brings down a whole שטיקל תואר, וביאר לנו חז"ל לאחר ביומים אלה, ואויו דעס רב עקיבא שעצוי מסור בטבס יצור לישראל, אף בשרב וכן אומר רבי יוחנן כובע בעשירי, and therefore also מכל מקום לנעקרו הקבולה לאוילום because there was no Gzeira, and the Takana of the Tainis was not on the Yoim, but on the Chodesh. But if the names, just to wrap it up, Shivah Asar B'Tammuz, one of the 5 things that happens Uvka a year. Pashta the Sugyas HaGemorim, Talmud Bavli is that in Bais Rishon was Horav in Tishah, in 9th of Tammuz, like Azev Shishtet in Psukim in Neriyo, and Bais Sheni Yud Zayin. And since Tishah says Bais Sheni is more Chomor, it's Yud Zayin. Question is, how are you Oiker the Tainis? How are we doing such a thing? So some of the suggestions are that really it happened on Shivah Asar B'Tammuz. The Yerushalmi says, and because of Kilkul Cheshbainis, which is a very mod nevor, that the Navi should perpetuate the Kilkul Cheshbainis, the Maharsha wants to say it wasn't a Kilkul, was the Kilkul just means that the Goyim made him perpetuate the date, and right in the Navi Tarikh, which is not the Jewish date, but basically the Goyish date, which is Shver from the Pasuk later, And then we have the Michaschina that wants to suggest that perhaps Bichlal there is no Chodesh, there is no Yom b'Chodesh, it's only the Chodesh itself in which the Chacham will kaver according to the needs Be'oisa Ashal.